49ers get Chase Young. What's up, everybody? Guy Haberman here. We'll have a full podcast coming up on Tuesday afternoon, a little later if you're watching this live. Great to see you, but decided to hop up on YouTube before the podcast. We'll have more reactions. Middlekoff will be with me. That'll be a 2:30 Pacific reaction show coming up a little later. Happy Halloween. Niners get Chase Young. And if you're watching this live, also, there's this with 24 minutes until the NFL trade deadline. Tim Kawakami tweeted, NFL source, 49ers are closing in on another trade. I don't know who it's for, but seems likely they've got one more. The guess would be cornerback or offensive line. Jalen Johnson demanded a trade. With what leverage in Chicago? Hard to know, but Chicago maybe acquired Montez Sweat, anticipating getting the pick back for Jalen Johnson. Maybe that's why they were willing to trade a second for him, because they think they're going to get at least a second back for Jalen Johnson. Maybe we'll see. He's been on the list. The trade for Chase Young was a third-round pick, a compensatory level pick. I mean, this is a team that hopes to be drafting at the end of the third round. McGlinchey, they got to get a comp for that. Rand Carthen, a comp for that. D'Amico Ryan's a comp for that. So from that standpoint, Chase Young is essentially free. At some point, the compensatory thirds are going to run out, but this ain't the year they're going to run out. So that is the second pass rusher the 49ers have acquired for almost nothing. I mean, financially, nothing essentially, and from a trade standpoint, from a value standpoint, nothing. And the reason I say nothing is because if you re-sign him, cool, but if you let him walk, he leaves as a free agent. Chase Young's a free agent after this year, still on his rookie deal. That's how young he is. Then you're going to get a compensatory pick back in the same way you got McGlinchey. So that's an incredible value. And all of a sudden, in the last couple of weeks, the Niners have gotten deep at pass rusher. Randy Gregory, who I think has been their second best edge rusher. I don't know what the PFF grade says, but he's the guy that's shown up more than Cleveland Ferrell and definitely more than Drake Jackson since he came to the Niners. Cleveland Ferrell's made some plays, but all of a sudden you've got some depth now. And, I remember going to Niners practices before the season and seeing Cleveland Ferrell line up on the other side and acknowledging that probably wasn't going to be good enough. So this is now good. I mean, when you look at the PFF pressure ranks, and I'm looking at them right here, I'm not going to put them on the screen because they're just so small when you throw the PFF up on the screen. But right now in hurries, the leaders in NFL hurries are Max Crosby, Aiden Hutchinson, George Karlaftis, Cam Jones, Micah Parsons, Chase Young is 6, Nick Bosa is 8. So you've got two of the top 10 in quarterback hurries now on this team. I know this seems to define logic, but Nick Bosa leads the NFL in QB hits by far. He has 5 more quarterback hits than the next closest guy on the list. Chase Young, by the way, is 23rd in that category with 5, but he has more sacks than Nick. Let me check the real stats because I'm looking at the PFF, and their sacks are different. He's got 5 sacks this year, right? So 5 sacks through 7 games for him. You're talking about a guy that's on track, on pace for double-digit sacks. You know what I like about this? There's a few things to like. One, he's a good player who's been healthy this year. After spending the 2 previous years unhealthy, he had a groin strain that cost him a game. He had the ACL in 2020 November. We're coming up on 2 years. We're about 2 weeks shy of 2 years since Chase Young tore his ACL. But part of what you like about it is we've watched Nick Bosa. We've seen that the sack production has not been there from Nick. It seems like maybe there's some frustration with the amount of quote unquote games being played on the D line instead of just cut it loose and go get it. go get the quarterback. Maybe that's a result of not feeling like you have the talent to just cut it loose. But I think this does several things. One of the things it does is it just takes a little heat off of Nick Bosa. You think back to the 49. Now, this is different. The way the alignment was different, but you think about the early part of Aldon Smith's career when he got off to one of the greatest pass rushing starts in the history of mankind. He had Justin Smith side by side with him. Now, Nick's got Hargrave and Armstead, but the pressure from the other side, you see it. Nick is by far and away the top priority, in the same way that the highest paid defensive player would always be the top priority. But this doesn't just help the 49ers fundamentally because you plug in Chase Young, but it also helps another Ohio State guy. It helps Nick Bosa. And if, this is one of those where as long as somebody's getting the sack, and that's been part of the issue with this team, if somebody's getting the sack, and we saw this, the Eric Armstead pressure up the middle on Joe Burrow, he got the sack when Nick Bosa was lined up on the right side against the left tackle, came pushing up that right side. He collapsed the pocket. Burrow stepped up. Armstead got the sack. As long as somebody's getting the sack, odds are Nick Bosa gets a hockey assist on that, right? At least an assist. Odds are if Chase Young gets a sack, it's going to be a result of too much attention being paid to Nick. So it doesn't matter which individual player gets a sack, right? At the end of the day, you got 4 sacks. They all count the same. Nick Bosa got 3. Chase Young got 1. Nick Bosa got none. Cleveland Ferrell got 4. It's all the same. But make no mistake, any sack that anybody on the field gets that isn't Nick Bosa is a response to Nick Bosa. It's a reaction to Nick Bosa. So he's been productive so far this year for the Commodores, as Jim Nantz liked to call them, accidentally called them, the football team, the Commanders, and, contract year with a legit D-line coach. This is good. This is good. It's very good. The other unique thing about Chase Young, the Eagles played the football team twice in the first 5 weeks of the season. So Chase Young has already played the Eagles twice. He's going to play the Eagles a third time when the Niners play the Eagles later in the year. If they meet in the playoffs, that'll be a 4th meeting, December 3rd. So we're just over a month away from Chase Young's 3rd game against the Eagles. So you know what? Let me just open up Twitter over here, unrelated to this stream, just to keep an eye. I know you guys are always, you are the mini Schefters, the comment section, but can't always be trusted. So I'm just going to open it up, but let me know if you see something. Yeah. Let me know if you guys see something popping and we can take a look at it. I got a lot of text messages. I'm sure you've been texting friends. Friend buddies are texting you going, really, I preferred a corner. I get that. The two things work hand in hand. You think about the issues that the Niners have had. Honestly, for as much flack as the secondary, as the D-line has gotten, it feels as coverage related as it does pass rush related. As much flack as the pass rush has gotten, at times it feels like the secondary is the bigger, weaker link. Isaiah Oliver, it's clear every week, right? I know I've seen the stats. You don't need the stats. I mean, the stats are good. I'm not hating on the stats, but all you got to do is watch the game to know that, in the past game, they are treating him like the way you treat a cornerback who just came into the game after an injury. Like, he's getting targeted, and it's working. He's getting targeted for a reason. He's not a net negative because he does tackle. He makes a lot of plays in the run game, and he when the ball's in front of him can make the tackle. The problem is the ball's over his head in the red zone, third down situations, and it's been a liability. So I get it. I get the desire for another cornerback to move Diamador Lenore in a nickel back and then, create a really good 1-2 punch with Surtain, Jalen Johnson, whoever, and Mooney Ward. So there's still a little time for that. But I think this guy helps that group. There is just, I have a hard time believing that this level of pass rushing talent will not be able to get to the quarterback. I just have a hard time believing that's not going to happen. There's another value here, and this is a little more superficial, but the Niners went limping into the bye week, kind of mopey, kind of just lethargic, down. And instead of spending the next now 2 weeks doing the we got to find a way, we got to find a way, we got to find a way. I think this just boosts morale a little bit. This is a shot in the arm. Christian McCaffrey last year was a shot in the arm. Now, it worked beyond just the trade because he turned out to be a great player. Like, ultimately, doing something splashy elevates morale and excitement and all that for a week, but it's got to work. But that said, they got 2 weeks where they're just sitting on this thing. And hopefully for them, part of the benefit here, you don't do the deal for this, but part of the benefit here is they didn't just acquire some complimentary piece. They acquired a really good player that everybody on the team views as a really good player. And I do think there's a morale boosting value in that for a team that's lost 3 games in a row, is emotionally kind of down in the dumps. Kyle Shanahan said his team is tired. They look tired on film. They are kind of backed against the wall again. They were backed against the wall last week. Their defensive coordinator has come under fire from inside and outside of the room. It's become a topic that's just has to be dealt with, is a little uncomfortable, got to be fixed. So to bring in Chase Young helps alleviate all of that. Doesn't fix it all, but it just helps alleviate it. Getting rest is going to help alleviate it. Maybe making some adjustments defensively to what you're asking the D-line to do is going to help alleviate it. But this guy can help you make adjustments because you're not now running out like 1.5 starters, which is kind of what they were doing. They had depth pieces starting at defensive line, and now they don't. So it's a major boost. This is a major boost. And it's a boost in multiple ways. Man, he has been when you just go look at the numbers. I got the cornerbacks up here. It's funny to see Bosa up there at the top of the hits list as I'm just looking at it. But win percentage, here are your guys in win percentage. Okay. Number one, we did this stat a while back and it was fun. So I like it. I like this stat a lot. And you go, if you didn't watch Nick Bosa, if you didn't follow the Nick Bosa story, you wouldn't think anything of this stat, right? You'd go, yeah, the stat. Myles Garrett's number one. Yep. Trey Hendrickson is number 2 in win percentage. I just watched him. That lines up. Nick Bosa's 3. That's where you stop and go, wait, I don't know. Is that matching what I see? Okay, put that aside. Micah Parsons is 4. Yep. DeMarcus Lawrence is 5. Josh Allen is 6. Zadarius Smith, Aiden Hutchinson, Max Crosby. Number 10 in defensive win percentage right now is Chase Young, 18.4%. He's the eyeball test. You go watch some of the film, because of his physicality, he really stands out. And, he's from a physical standpoint, right? He's just closer to Myles Garrett than he is Bosa. He's taller than Myles. And he's a unique case, a former second-round pick who has all the tools, who's not a locker room cancer, who's currently healthy, who's young. What is he, 24 years old? I mean, he's still on his rookie contract. But because of the injury history and because they got a new owner in Washington, they're trading their pass rushers. He turned 24 in April. That's there are just these guys. There aren't a lot of these guys. There are not a lot of these guys, and they just got one. So pretty unique. Wrong. He's number 8 in pressures, 5 in pressures. Yeah, I mean, you were saying to that other comment, that's fine. I mean, it's 8 and 5 is, if we're using the PFF numbers I mentioned earlier, but yeah, I've got him 6 in hurries. Okay, so you can debate which rank it is, but it's all the same. It's all the same. Yep, that's right. Tim A, first round pick 2, just like Bosa. Eric says, how interesting how people are saying they didn't really give up anything with a third round pick, but that fourth round pick they got from Trey Lance is huge value. That doesn't add up. Yeah, it does. I get it. I mean, you're saying you gave up a guy who can be an impact player, a comp third pick when you have other thirds. That is value. The counter to that is the fourth round pick for Trey. It's just based on what you expected. There was a point where I didn't think they'd get anything for Trey Lance. So it's not that anyone's saying a third round pick, a fourth round pick is better than a third round pick. And, they're moving the goalposts for a guy that you sent away versus a guy you acquired. I think it's just as simple as what would you expect it to cost you to get this? Third string quarterbacks, generally, which is what Lance is, in the Niners case, a borderline fourth string quarterback, generally cost less than a fourth. Like that doesn't cost you a fourth usually. And, elite pass rushers. It's not even, it's a silly comparison. It's a silly comparison. I get what you're getting at, but I think it has to do fully with the person you're getting. When you're giving up something you weren't going to use and you get a fourth for it, that feels like value. When you're getting something you're definitely going to use and you're giving up an expendable pick for it, that feels like value. So I think it's all. I think it pencils. I think it makes sense. I swear to God, you guys throw me fake trades in the chat. Now you send me running to Twitter. I'm not gonna. No, Giants are signing Tommy DeVito to the active roster. Browns are trading Donovan Peoples-Jones to Lions. That's old. I see what you guys are saying in the chat. Come on, that's not real. That's not real. That's not real. No, that's not real. Let's Go says Wilkes makes me not excited about Chase. This is a doubly big week for the 49ers, right? You get a pass rusher for a pass rush that could use the help. And you also have an extra week to see if your defensive coordinator can figure it out. They're going to come back in 2 weeks, and they're going to play a good team. They're going to go on the road. They've had some long trips at Vikings, at Browns. They've played teams off buys. They're playing another one off a bye in Jacksonville coming up. This is going to be a chance for them to get fresh, but also it's going to be all about, did they figure anything out? And it might be as simple as simplifying. Do you do the thing where they bring them down to the field? I know Kyle Shanahan said, there'll be I'll have a private conversation with Steve, which, I get, obviously the conversation is going to be private, but you just told us you're going to have the conversation, which means that if he ends up in the booth and not on the field, that he convinced you not to do. I don't know why you want to share that publicly, but he did. And so we'll see. I mean, I think it's a little desperate if Steve Wilkes is suddenly on the field, unless you can tell me there's a real fundamental reason for it. Steve Wilkes prefers to be in the booth. We know this because Steve Wilkes is in the booth. That's where he started, in the booth. If Steve Wilkes appears on the field, I can think of some other ones, but The most legitimate reason would be if the 49ers feel like, if Fred Warner feels like communication is a problem, in-game adjustments are a problem because they can't have as fast a line of communication. If you told me that's the reason, I'd say, all right, new coordinator, a little more to work through. We need to be able to talk faster and more directly to each other. Okay. Normally what guys say is, I just want to look the guys in the eye, man. D'Amico Ryans and Robert Saleh were big chest pounding, pump up guys. And them being on the field had an emotional value. They were the first guys out there slapping fives, hitting guys in the head, all that. That's not Steve Wilkes' style, which is fine. Plenty of successful coaches have done it differently from an emotional standpoint. But if he comes down on the field because they need an energy boost and he's not an energy boost guy, well, are you only handicapping his ability to call the game because now he's not in the booth anymore? So, that to me is not some grand solution unless Fred Warner says, no, the problem we're having is communicating in games. Or Nick Bosa says, there are so many times I want to give feedback to my coach during the game, but it's too hard. I got to pick up the phone. I got to talk through. I got to tell the position. I got to tell Kasarik. He then tells him, that's a pain. So you could argue that, but I'd rather fix it in the way that, not force a guy to do something that's out of his comfort zone, just for the optics. Like, if you think it's going to work and it's going to help, fine. If it's just for the optics, don't bother. Get better. Fix the problem. Don't do this. Fix that. I don't want to spend a week talking about, oh, well, maybe this is going to do it, and it doesn't address the real issue. So, I'd rather see you get more production out of Nick Bosa. Sean says we need an O-line move. I've got. Let me pull up the atomic. Let's do this here. You guys know about the atomic clock? Let's get it official. Will this one work? Yeah, here we go. Atomic clock down here in the lower right. Here we go. This is the real time right here. This is the NFL clock. So whatever your clock says on your computer should be probably close. We're not working off Samoa Standard Time, but this is Pacific time. When that hits 1 o'clock, trade deadline has arrived. Doesn't mean things don't get it. We know that things sometimes will get announced after the trade deadline occurs. But I'm just scrolling Twitter, looking at this, excited for Chase Young. This trade happens on a Tuesday. I would imagine if they were to have had a game coming up this Sunday, he probably would play. But the fact that this is 2 weeks away really gives him time to get here, to settle in. And kind of, get some practices in and hit the ground running. He's not, I mean, he's playing a lot. He has played almost as many snaps as pass rush snaps as Nick Bosa. Nick Bosa's played 282 snaps, and Chase Young has played 252 snaps. That's more snaps than Micah Parsons. So he's playing a lot. All right, we are past 1 o'clock Pacific time. The trade deadline has come and gone. And if anything else is going to happen or did happen, it has to have already happened. And one thing Seahawks. So everybody had a good defense. Eagles added Kevin Byard. Seattle, the first place team in the NFC West, added Leonard Williams, and the Niners got Chase Young, and the Bears got Montez Sweat. NFC is loaded. Schultz said, "Oh, Broncos not expected to trade Jerry Jeudy or Cortland Sutton." It's one of these you're just kind of watching to see if anything leaks out, not leaks out, but didn't get out. It is now official. Johnson staying put in Chicago, it looks like, or did stay put in Chicago. Refreshing. Not seeing anything else. Jets sign Roger Saffold. Some Raiders news. Well, good for the Niners. You would have liked. I saw somebody in the chat say earlier they would have liked a double dip of a pass rusher and a corner. No doubt, I was with it. I would have loved a corner. I think that when part of the concern with a pass rusher over a cornerback is that when you've played, and we've seen it the last 2 weeks, when you play quarterbacks that really know what they're doing, that really get the ball out quickly. Let me get these numbers up here. Having a great pass rush is fine, but quarterback can get it out faster and you can get to him. And that's where coverage comes into play, especially early in a route when you're trying to get it out in 2.2 seconds or 1.2, whatever it's going to be against the 49er pressure. That it's, even the fastest quarterback is going to beat the fastest pass rusher. That's probably the simplest way of saying what I'm trying to say. And then for that reason, you need corners to cover. And I think there's some logic to it. So Joe Burrow's second in the NFL in time to throw, 2.4 seconds. Cousins was 13th at 2.7. Brock, by the way, is fifth in the league in 2.5. The Niners' next game is coming against Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence is fourth in the NFL in time to throw, 2.48 seconds. He's the fourth fastest release in the league. He's taken a fair amount of sacks, but he gets the ball out, right? So the argument is 2.48 seconds. He's just going to know, he can see your guys coming, and he's a fast enough processor and a good enough thrower with a good enough coach that he's going to beat you. And if you're going to get to him in 2.4, he'll throw it in 2.35. And if you're going to get to him in 2.35, he'll throw it in 2.3. I mean, that's how it felt with Cousins, and that's how it felt largely with Burrow. If you told those guys the Niners pass rush is going to get to you in 2, they throw it in 1.95. Like they'll find a way because they're and those are the teams you play in the playoffs. And when you have a first round, when you have a first place schedule, those are also the teams that you end up playing in the regular season. So that would be the argument in part, I think, to corner over pass rusher. But the reality is you can't always get it out in 1.5 if you know they're going to get there in 1.6. I mean, they're not. That's too fast. But you can't always get it out in, I'll use more real numbers, 2.35 if you know they're going to get there in 2.42. And it's not just about the sacks. It's about arms up. It's about collapsing the pocket. The other aspect with this guy is corralling Jalen Hurts, I think, is an element. So better than nothing. They didn't get everything, but they did get something they needed. I saw something here. I got to go back. I can't find the comment. Somebody made a comment like they didn't get what they needed. I disagree. I mean, they needed this. Going back to the offseason, I thought they'd be deep enough at pass rusher. That was incorrect. And part of the reason was I expected Drake Jackson to take a jump this year. The Drake Jackson jump has not occurred. Not only has it not occurred, it doesn't even feel like he's making the same impact that he made at times last year. Now, it feels like what happened at the end of last year has continued. So, that was part of the growth That was part of the bet, I should say, was the growth of Drake Jackson. Didn't happen. All right, so you pivot. Deal with that problem later. How do you help Isaiah Oliver get to the quarterback? And that's what they're going to try and do. But make no mistake, he is getting targeted. That's not going to stop. And they've got to find a fix for it because it's automatic right now. But I like this. You're not going to get everything you want in the trade deadline. What was the price on Jalen Johnson? Did it require a contract extension also? I've always liked Jalen Johnson because I think he went to Central High School, Fresno, California. Did he go to Edison? Clovis East? Went to Utah, was a good player. When he went to Utah, he was the top-ranked cornerback they'd ever gotten. And he went to Central High School. Nailed it. He was the top-ranked cornerback they'd ever gotten, and he lived up to the hype. And he was there for 3 years. Then went into the draft and was he was the 50th pick. I mean, to me, Jalen Johnson is an example of a guy that has lived up to the expectations every step of the way now. And I think that says something about a guy. He did find out that trade demands don't equal trades. But no, sorry, I realize I'm talking about Johnson. Somebody just hopped in is going to think you got Johnson. Got Chase Young. Didn't get Johnson. Sounds like the Niners were working on something. Niners are close on another trade. Now Tim Kawakami posted that at 12:14, 45 minutes before the deadline. And nothing else happened. But the most excited person for this, it should be Nick Bosa. Pass rushers love other pass rushers. Rohan says Kawakami doesn't know anything. Rohan, if you have any respect for me, or you think, not even respect, if you think that my word has, I'm telling you he does. He knows a lot of stuff. I just spent some time quite a bit of time talking with Tim yesterday, actually. So he knows stuff. Based on some of the stories he told me, he knows a lot. It didn't happen, but doesn't mean it wasn't useful. Bosa was happy for Gregory. Crickets. Gregory was at the time, remember, Gregory was not viewed as we need something now, a savior, help immediately. It was a low risk, medium reward move. And I still think it was. I think at the end of the day, the three best pass rushers on this team, edge rushers on this team, are two guys they just added. Maybe you could argue, Cleveland Ferrell's been as good as Randy Gregory, but that's close. The Tito's vodka guy doesn't know anything either. LOL. Hey, if you want to say TK doesn't know anything, that's fine. I'm just telling you, I think you're wrong. There was a deal with the Giants. Oh, hold on. I'm sorry. I appreciate you guys letting me know stuff, but I don't appreciate when you lie to me. I don't know if that was a lie or real. I don't know. Not that we're not exactly live on ABC News here, so it's okay if I guess something bad goes up, but I want to avoid that. Is this a real person? Is this a real guy? The Giants. Yeah, well, I'll show you this, and then we can, maybe one of you knows, actually. This would be a little disappointing if this is true. Wesley Steinberg. Is this a, sorry, I'm not aware of, I don't, Jordan Renan is my, Giants insider. Is this true? Is he a Giants insider? Giants had a trade agreed to with Adoree Jackson, but failed to report to the league in time. Is that a fact? Is that anybody know about Wesley? So I'm going to take it off, but that's interesting. I mean, it would make sense. The Niners have been connected to Adoree Jackson. Adoree Jackson was on the list of potential guys, but Flav says the Lions' schedule is easier than everyone else's. They'll be the 1 seed. Niners at Philadelphia will be huge for the tiebreak, but likely the 2 seed. You know, I've become a Lions are 6-2. I've become a I feel like I believe in the Lions the right amount. Team with Jared Goff has gone to the Super Bowl before. I know he's back, resurrected, playing good football. I guess I'm a hater. I'm not. I like Jared. But they're just not as good a team as Philly, I don't think. But they don't play Philly 8 times in a row. This is their schedule. Chargers, Bears at home, Packers at home, at Saints, at Bears. Bears December 10th. I know people going to chalk that one up for the Lions. Let's see Jared Goff in the cold. Denver, home game, good for them. Vikings on the road at Dallas. Vikings again. Yeah, I mean, it feels like at this point 6-2, 12-5 at the worst is what that feels like. Are they going to get to 13? They get to 13, that might get it done. But I'm still just a little skeptical. I'm just there. You know, I know everybody's declaring they're not the Lions anymore. I'm pro Dan Campbell. But neither San Francisco or Philly would be scared to go to Detroit in the playoffs. Well, I mean, they should be. I mean, you go on the road to a dome, you should be concerned. And I think there's a significant advantage in playing the Lions at home versus playing them in Detroit. Because both the Niners and Eagles play outside. Not that the Niners are playing frigid temperatures, but I think outside and on the road is very different for Jared Goff in loud stadiums, is very different for Jared Goff than at home on turf, where the other quarterback is the one that has to deal with the dome. So, you know, even though I'm not as high on the Lions as a lot of people, as most people, I do have to acknowledge they're talented, they're physical, and they believe. And a home game at Detroit, can you imagine how loud that place would be? Domes are just going to be loud. Sellout crowds are going to be loud. But if the Lions are hosting, given their long storied history of sucking, that place is going to be pretty incredible. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know if scared may not be the word, but take it from somebody who's not all in on the Lions being champions. I wouldn't want to go to Detroit either. I wouldn't want to go to Detroit. Ethan, with a 2 spot. This trade puts pressure on Wilks to fix the back end. There's a ton of pressure on Wilks, period. But you're right. We're going to have 2 weeks of buildup. The Niners got Chase Young. We're going to have 2 weeks of that. And it's going to really make it hurt if they go to Jacksonville and lose. So That is a ton of pressure. But there was pressure before Chase Young showed up. I don't know, like there was already a lot of pressure. So he'd rather have the pressure with Chase Young than without him. Rather have so you take it. Like it's at this point, all the pressure that's there is already there. I don't think there's suddenly more pressure. It was the block was hot already. Yeah, again, I don't let's vet out that Giants report. Let's vet that. Don't consider this live reporting. But it's one of those things that I don't know that is Schefter going to get uh is Schefter going to get to that? I mean, Jordan Renan, who I followed for a long time. Yeah, I don't know. Let's see if there will be a response to that Giants report about a deal being done and not being done in time. We'll see. Here's what Jordan Renan wrote. My understanding is interest wasn't there for players such as Adoree Jackson. Okay, so he's not reporting. Jordan Renan, who respect to the other guy, I don't know who it is, and he probably doesn't know who I am, so it's fine. But I'm not sure that I need a second report on that before I repeat it and believe it. Jordan Renan has not said, I don't think, anything in that regard other than there wasn't enough interest. Yeah, he hasn't. So I'm not gonna go with that one, that there was a deal on Adoree Jackson done. If you read Wesley Steinberg's tweets, it's just satire. All right, well, good. Then we're out on that, and we can move on. Thank you, Bryant. This is we try to protect ourselves from the untruth. Good satire on the internet. The key to good satire is make it kind of believable. So do not repeat that information. Somebody else says it's true. I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, but yeah, I don't. I even if there was a conversation there, I don't know that was going to solve the problem anyway. So, Dubal retweeted. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. We'll find out. Sounds like the Niners are hoping the Ohio State bookends will help the coverage. They are. No, I know they're not going to get home in 2 seconds. I keep seeing that's a parody account. Wouldn't be a trade deadline without a parody account. I know when I saw the what trade was it? Must have been the Montez Sweat trade. I immediately went to the profile, clicked on it. Is this real? Whichever rap sheet, whoever it was. And it was. So yeah. Does do all the wins for Nick Bosa translate to sacks now? Because they need to. I mean, going back and watching the Joe Burrow escape 2 sacks on the same play and throw a completion downfield on the money play, which was a great play by Joe. I think what makes it all kind of hurt a little bit is it feels like the Niners have had that thing happen to them a ton. Justin Fields last year in the mud, Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl, Russell Wilson his whole career, Kirk Cousins disappeared in a pile of people and then reemerged to convert a 3rd down throw 2 weeks ago. It seems to happen to them now. I watch them more closely than I watch any other team, but it seems to happen to them more than anybody else. It happened, basically the Eli Manning, David Tyree play is what I'm talking about, where the quarterback is about to be sacked and then somehow the play isn't over. And they got to get home. They got to get home. Your guys are going to get beat. Your corners, it's just hard. It's hard to cover for a long time. But they got to find a way if guys are going to be running wide ass open as they have been the last 2 weeks. That's what's been eye-opening. I think John made a point yesterday. It was a good point. Yesterday, what's today? Tuesday, Sunday. He made the point like it used to be with this Niners defense that Devontae Adams. When you played the Packers and Devontae Adams, you just knew there's going to be 7 throws a game where Devontae Adams just running wide ass open. Kind of like if you watch the Monday night game, he was wide open and Jimmy overthrew him. Well, he's a good player, and that's just going to happen to you. But it's happening with like other dudes that are not Devontae Adams. How are they getting so open? Well, these are Shanahan mold quarterback play callers, not quarterbacks. Well, quarterbacks too. But these are Shanahan mold play callers the last 3 weeks. And what does Kyle Shanahan do? Gets receivers wide ass open. So what are these Shanahan? They're not all his tree, but it's all kind of the same thing. What do those guys do? They're getting guys wide ass open against the Niners defense, against Steve Wilkes' defense. So I saw there was a Joe Anarumo. Am I saying that right? Bengals DC. Big on names. People deserve the respect of having their name said correctly, but I'm not positive on that one. Went on McAfee's show today, and he said Brock Purdy's a good player. We really worked on disrupting his timing, getting pressure. And that's what every quarterback will say. When you talk to quarterbacks, the stuff that always comes up, it's not cornerback coverage, it's pass rush. It's pressure. Pressure in their face, pressure off the edge, off the blind side, getting hit as they throw, getting hit repeatedly. Can you handle that? Can you get up? Can you bounce back? All that stuff. That's all they talk about. Quarterbacks rarely talk about coverage in terms of, they talk about coverage from a scheme standpoint, but the receiver knows where he's going, the DB doesn't. Quarterbacks feel like if you got a step, you're open, I should hit you. That's that. So it is true. The best way to affect them is with pressure. And from that standpoint, if that is your number one priority, you would pick pass rusher over cornerback. What can't be denied is both aspects of the Niners defense is lacking. Each is complementary to the other. I don't know that they had to choose because you weren't getting Jalen Johnson for a third. You weren't getting Patrick Surtain for a third. You got Chase Young for a third. So that feels like a good balance of it's a splash deal, but it's also a balanced deal. One sec. Like 1 second. Just had to get a little cough drop here. So, usually I keep them over here. This comment from Chris. You got Young for free and you couldn't get a cornerback. Oliver will continue to get burned and Ward will keep giving you penalties. Oh, well. Yeah, the Ward penalty thing has been, I don't know if I wouldn't say alarming, but it's definitely been a problem. Like you are not getting lockdown, lockdown corner stuff. Feels more like QB2. Yeah, I mean cornerback too. He is a CB1 in the sense that there's not, he's a top whatever cornerback. He's not, doesn't feel like a top 5 guy. But he is a CB1. But it feels more like physicality is the game than true like artistry, right? In the way that lockdown corners are. So, is Darrell Luter going to come back and play corner and play nickel for them? Is that going to make them feel good? Brian, I don't understand how NFL trades work. How is Young worth a third rounder? Rattray is worth a fourth. One is a Pro Bowler. The other can't get on the field. Well, I mean, they're unrelated. So on one hand, you have an owner stepping in and making a trade, Jerry Jones. People say that your value is what someone's willing to pay for you. Trey Lance being a fourth-round pick was surprising value to me. Timing matters. Chase Young is going to be a free agent. So they traded him for a third. I mean, they could just get the comp third after. I don't quite get it. But maybe they think the Niners. Yeah, I don't know. It's a good question. It's a good question on how that's worth. How maybe they don't think he's going to get paid enough to be a third round pick. Like you do compensatory. Like you have to get a lot of money, right? Mike McGlinchey got a lot of money, so there's no guarantee the Niners might not get a third round compensatory pick for Chase Young. Maybe they feel like there's a risk that he gets hurt, and then they're definitely not going to get a compensatory pick for him. And he's not helping them win the Super Bowl this year, so let's move him. And if he gets hurt, we still get the third. I don't, he's got an injury history. You got to acknowledge that. So could be that, but I just, any trade that the Cowboys do, not any trade, but it's hard when the owner does a deal, you kind of just throw all that stuff out the window. And from what people have said, this was kind of owner driven in Washington too. Like, let's rebuild here, trade Sweat, trade Young, and start that. Oh, yeah. You know what? This is a good point. Good catching my mistake here, Wood Gravy. They get to pick this year instead of next. Thank you. Good point. Like the compensatory pick, the Niners, let's say Chase Young leaves, it's a 2025 pick instead of 2024 pick. So thank you for catching my mistake there. Yeah, one's under contract, one isn't. That's not end of story. I mean, there's a lot of other factors here, but Mr. Big Twain, so much invested in the D-line, and we're talking about not getting enough pressure. Shake my head. That is wild. It is. It really is. You're not wrong. It is wild. The amount of money invested, not just the amount of money invested, the amount of money invested in known quantities. It's not like, Nick Bosa was somebody else's player. Eric Armstead was not somebody else's player. Now, Hargrave was, but I think Hargrave's been, I know people were asking where he was last week. Hargrave's been largely pretty damn good for them, I think. So but you have to accept what your reality is. You can't keep saying this shouldn't be happening. This shouldn't be happening. This shouldn't be happening. You have to accept this is happening. It's just like life. So what are we going to do about it? So they did something about it. I seen Jordan Mason's face on the back of the carton of milk I just bought. Big Twain's 100% right. It is. I'm with you. Max, use the bye week to change defensive coordinator. That's not happening. Twain. Niners are getting tons of pressure. They're not good. They're not closing with sacks and hits. That's the issue. They are getting hits. Bosa leads the league in hits. What? Hit him sooner. Hits not soon enough. I mean, what are hits, actually? Balls out, you hit them, that's a hit? Right? I've never actually thought about it. I've just assumed, hits are sacks, well, I guess not TFLs. TFLs on the quarterback is a sack. Hit as he's throwing, that's a hit. Hit him after it's out, that's a hit. I mean, another stat for hits could be late, I guess, is the point. Late. 15 times late. Nice. I mean, a little sarcastic here, but hitting a quarterback as he throws is a significant thing. Ball goes wherever the ball goes. Maybe it gets intercepted. Hitting the quarterback after the ball is gone is potentially significant because you get in his head. But it's just another way of saying late. It's like a non-penalty late hit is what a hit is in that sense. Had Cousins and Burrow wrapped up for sacks. Yeah. I mean, the Burrow, I saw a video today. Somebody did like a breakdown of the Burrow play, slow motion. The part I did not see live, and it was like end zone view of the Burrow. He gets out of the Armstead, right? He like ducks out of it. Bosa's on him. Burrow goes arm to the shoulder. Offensive lineman recovers and like gets Bosa out of there. Like knocks Bosa off of him. And then after all of that, it's like, well, he's going to throw it away. And then he throw a dime. Joe Burrow's a hell of a player. It always makes me laugh when like guys are established, like Josh Allen, throw a couple picks, have a bad game. People go, I don't know. Is Josh Allen having a bad year? You know, so I talked about this yesterday, but when Mahomes has a 3 turnover game, it's not the same as when Brock has a 3 turnover game. Okay. Just Mahomes is like, could win the MVP every year. It's established that the 3 turnover game is not who he is. That's been established. We're still figuring out what Brock Purdy is. So let's not compare those two things. Steven says, if you told me you would draft Jackson, sign Hargrave, sign Bosa, trade for Randy, then witness our cornerback get destroyed and traded for another D lineman, Chase Young, I would have said you're crazy. Yeah, imagine like closing your eyes and saying this to somebody 1 year ago. Boy, the Niners just aren't getting enough pressure with Bosa, Hargrave, Randy Gregory, and Chase Young. It's just because that's if they're not getting pressure on. And by the way, they're playing a guy that I told you the stat earlier, top 5 in the league in time to throw, and is athletic, gets the ball out, has a good coach, like smart, with an extra week to prepare on the bye. So the Jags have every advantage from that standpoint that Minnesota had and that Cincinnati had, and they're at home. It's a really tough test. But we could be sitting there after the game going, that world is that you lose 4 in a row. You just spent 2 weeks hyping up Chase Young. Your defense doesn't get it done, or your team doesn't get it done, or who knows? Maybe your defense does get it done, and Brock throws 2 more picks. I don't know. If you want to, if I want to make you feel bad, we could talk about that scenario. But you got to think if you keep adding Pro Bowlers, at some point you're going to get a sack. People keep talking about the comp pick. I'd rather they bring back Chase Young than get a comp pick for him. Yeah, I mean, let's watch him play. He was playing really well for Washington this year. Like, he really was playing well. So it is, make no mistake, whatever comes next, from a value standpoint, this was a great trade. This is a great trade. This is a really impressive trade. Well done. Good ass deal. If he plays well enough for you to keep him, it means other people are going to want him, and you don't exactly have the most financial flexibility. Rosenhaus, I'll call him back. Flexibility in the world. So it feels unlikely. Vince, great trade. Great trade. They only have him for the rest of the year, but he's motivated. I knew they'd make a move. They've been all in for a few years. Much love from Italy. Vince, great to have you. Yeah, I mean, this thing was. They've got a rep now. They have a rep. They want really. They want blue chip players when they make trades. Emmanuel Sanders is not McCaffrey level blue chip, but was a really good player. I mean, really good player. And this is another blue chip guy. Banking on good talent, youth, good coaching, good team around him, all that type of stuff. Motivated because he's a free agent, no doubt. But I just think he's fun. He's just a solid. He's a good player. He just hasn't been healthy, but he's a good player. So, yeah, I mean, it's a good recipe. The other thing is just he's been in Washington through a lot of dysfunction. And, well, Niners on defense aren't the last few days have not felt functional, but no one's ever talked about the Commanders as a championship contender. So he gets to experience that too, and that's pretty good. So he's got to be pretty fired up, I would think. When a defense with great players and a perfect track record gets a DC and then becomes a mediocre, or for instance drops from number 2 to number 26 in run defense and is mediocre otherwise, it's the DC. Yeah, I mean, there's one major change. Change at nickel too, which is significant. But yeah, one major change. Tony says if they go 5-4 for the rest of the season, they're a playoff team. Then anything can happen. Keep the faith. 5-4? 5-4 would mean, first of all, wouldn't feel great. But that aside, 10-7. So 5-4. Okay, you got to lose 4 of these games. Jags, Bucks, Seahawks, Eagles. Seahawks, Cardinals, Ravens, Commanders, Rams. So let's just say at the beginning of the year, forget about the fact that they've lost 3 in a row. At the beginning of the year, if I said they lose on the road to the Jags, okay. If I said they lose on the road to the Eagles, okay. If I said they lose at home to the Ravens, okay. So there's 3. So to get to 5-4 the rest of the way, which is not good, you also have to lose a game to either Tampa, Seattle, Arizona, Washington, or the Rams. At this point, you'd have to say, I mean, they're playing well. Seattle, you have to say Seattle. So that means your wins in that scenario are Tampa, a Seattle win, okay, an Arizona win, a Washington win, blah, and a Rams Week 18 win. Ugh. So, yeah, it's true. You get to the playoffs, anything can happen. But you'd probably, at that point, have only won 2 games over playoff teams, if that's how it played out, right? It'd be the Cowboy game and one of the Seattle wins. That would not inspire confidence. That would feel like one of the worst 10-7 seasons you could imagine. And 10-7 definitely feels closer to the old 9-7 than the old 10-6. A split with Seattle gets us there. Could happen. Seattle not better than the Niners. Sorry, not even with the losing streak. I think the Niners just. I've said this. I don't think Geno's the guy that beats the Niners, but at this point, they got good vibes, and the Niners got bad vibes. He can play on a nicer field now too. But anyway, that message ended with keep the faith. So don't let me steal your faith. I don't want to be a faith stealer. Beat number 1 seed Packers with 10 wins 2 years ago. I know. Do you remember how that game happened? It was insane. That game was insane. I don't like counting on that. It can happen, but it feels like a better recipe would be like not being a 500 team the rest of the way. Offense needs to be aggressive. At no point do I feel confident the defense will get a crucial stop. So kiss punting goodbye. I mean, when you don't get that opening drive score that they normally have, and they didn't get it. They went 3 and out to start the game the other day. And then they score. And now you're playing from behind with this defense. Very uneasy. What do you think of Washington SC this week? Well, it's a huge game. It's the biggest game in the Pac-12 this week. Washington needs to get it going. It doesn't sound like Jalen McMillan, who's one of their best. They're like number 2 receiver. Still not, try to come back. I think he's knee stability or something. Not 100%, whatever it is. It's a huge game for Washington. But, if they were to lose, it complicates so much stuff because they've beaten Oregon. SC is still right there in the playoff mix. Now SC's schedule is really hard coming up. So a loss to SC may not bury Washington. Nobody's gotten through the league undefeated. And a loss here would really complicate things for them. I've got a game this week. Sometimes you guys ask me. I don't usually shout it from the rooftops, but since often you ask, Saturday afternoon, Utah State, San Diego State. I'm just rooting for the World Series to end in 6 games. If the World Series ends in 6 games, that'll be on FS1. If the World Series goes Game 7, that'll be on FS2. The analyst is the OP, Petros Papadakis. So I'm excited about that, to work with Petros. I've worked with him before, but sometimes you guys ask if I'm doing a game. So yes, Utah State, San Diego State, FS1 or FS2, depending on the World Series on Saturday. Need a cornerback. D-line won't get home if these dudes are open all the time. I know. My friend, how are you? Rick, hi. It seems like everyone's happy to get this guy. What about the offensive line? Trent Williams comes back. I think the offensive line is good enough. It's fine. I mean, it's not elite, but it's fine. It's good. It's all right. Run the ball. And with Trent back, maybe you can run it more effectively. So that's all right. Okay. There's your trade. There's your Chase Young got traded the 49ers stream. It is, I'm wrapping this up at 1:45. John and I will be back in about, if you're live, 45 minutes. If you're here right now, don't forget we're sponsored by Tito's Handmade Vodka. But you hitting that like button is a great way to help out the show and the channel. Subscribe if you're not subscribed. Half of you watching this video are not subscribed. We'd love for you to subscribe. That helps create more content, and it helps more people see it. When you hit that like button, what YouTube does is like, oh, this person liked it. Oh, these people liked it. Okay, let's spit it out more. I mean, that's the way that the game kind of works, is when you hit, the more likes it gets, it's like a self-fulfilling little ecosystem. The more likes it gets, the more it gets suggested to other people because you liked it. So maybe somebody else will like it. So that's how that works. So when you do that, you really help out beyond just the single video getting a like. You really help the video push to other people, which gets the channel to grow. So thanks for that. And more coming up in a little bit. And thanks for hanging, everybody. Later. Appreciate it. Good to see you. YouTube.